You've got shit. I've got shit. We've all got shit. So let's therapize that shit with your host, me, Joy Gerhard. Cannot and do not diagnose anyone or prescribe anything. This is just me, someone who struggles with mental illness, emotions, and intrusive thoughts, sharing what skills I've used and how I've used them. Also, trigger warning, in this podcast, I talk about sensitive topics including mental illness, suicidal ideation, so swear here and there, so listener discretion is advised. If you're new to the podcast, some context for you. I've gotten a ton of value out of doing group therapy and watching others process their shit. In group, I can see other people's patterns and behaviors, but rather they're adjacent to mine. It's such a relief. I want to share this relief with you via this podcast, wherein I practice skills while actually in the thick of shit. Each episode, I typically do an introduction and provide some context. Then I play a recording of me actively dealing with shit. Do an introduction and provide some context. Then I play a recording of me actively dealing with shit. This isn't me talking about psychology or theories. I'm actually in distress, having strong emotions and strong urges. You're going to hear me crying, angry, numb, but my intent strong urges. You're going to hear me crying, angry, numb, but my intention is always to move through an emotion, never to stay there. So stick with me, and we'll actually come out on the other side by the end of the episode. Alrighty, let's hop to it. Hop to it. Welcome, welcome. I have another guest today. This is now, I think, my third episode in a row where I have a guest, which is very exciting. We're going to be joined shortly by my sister, Ruth, who is my older sister. But I did want to do a little intro to the conversation that she and I had in the recording that I'm going to play for you. First, just some general updates on the life of Joy, because I mentioned this quite a bit in the conversation with Ruth. I am currently in a partial hospitalization program, a PHP, which is if you've been in a psych hospital for any length of time, they recommend that you basically step down from total 24-hour-a-day care to now partial hospitalization, which is 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. And then stepping down, which is 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. And then you go from the intensive outpatient and then down to just regular standard outpatient, like having a regular therapist and being in regular DBT group. So that is what I have been doing for the last month. And it has been a bit of a roller coaster I'm feeling on any given day. But the conversation that I had with Ruth was from October 11th, 2025. I am recording this on October 19th, so a little bit over a week ago. And some brief orientation before I play the recording for you. Most of this is dialectic behavioral therapy and is my therapy type of choice, the one that works best for my brain. The DBT manual, the second edition, is linked in the description, both in the PDF form and where you can buy a hard copy. There is now a revised edition that I do not like. All of the content is the same. It's just organized differently. But the handout numbers and the worksheet numbers are going to be the same between the second edition and the revised edition. Whenever I'm quoting the DBT manual or really anyone else's work other than my own, I turn on some reverb so that I sound like I'm in a domestic airport terminal, or more accurately, a domestic airport terminal bathroom. I will be referencing handouts from several of the DBT modules in this episode. There are 4 modules: mindfulness, interpersonal effectiveness, emotion regulation, and distress tolerance. So when I mention a handout that I'm reading from, I'll say something like, this is from Distress Tolerance Handout 12, or whatever, so you can follow along if you're so inclined. And also, a huge thank you to my Patreon supporters, my sisters Anne and Ruth. You all are effervescent orbicular cichlids. and are 98.8% of the reason this podcast exists for public consumption. And certainly you guys are almost all of the reason that the last several episodes, including this one, exist for public consumption because you've been my guests. If you, dear listener, would like to support this podcast, the link to my Patreon is in the description. All right, so what are we talking about today with Ruth? We're going to be talking about radical acceptance. Shocker of shockers. This is one of the most frequent topics that come up on this podcast because I think, at least for me, it is one of the things that contributes the most to my suffering. That when I am out of acceptance around something, I am suffering around it. So a quick intro. I'm not going to go through radical acceptance step by step. We're going to save that for a future conversation with Ruth. But we're going to start with just an overview of what radical acceptance is. So this is from Distress Tolerance Handout 11, cleverly titled Radical Acceptance, which is what you use when you cannot keep painful events and emotions from coming your way. What is radical acceptance? Radical means all the way, complete, and total. It is accepting in your mind, your heart, and your body. It is when you stop fighting reality, stop throwing tantrums because reality is not the way you want it, and let go of bitterness. What has to be accepted? Number 1, reality is as it is. The facts about the past and the present are the facts. 2, there are limitations on the future for everyone, but only realistic limitations need to be accepted. Number 3, everything has a cause, including events and situations that cause you pain and suffering. Number 4, life can be worth living even with painful events in it. Number 2, changing reality requires first accepting reality. Number 3, pain can't be avoided. It is nature's way of signaling that something is wrong. Number 4, rejecting reality turns pain into suffering, bitterness, anger, sadness, shame, or other painful emotions. Number 6, acceptance may lead to sadness, but deep calmness usually follows. And number 7, the path out of hell is through misery, by refusing to accept the misery that is part of climbing back into hell. Which reminds me of one of my favorite embroideries that I've done, which says, "This is terrible, keep going." Like if I am in a horrible situation, refusing to keep moving means that now I'm just staying in that horrible situation forever and forever because I cannot teleport. And as far as I know, no one else can teleport either, sadly. Earlier, it asked the question, what has to be accepted? And it's really just the facts about the past and the present. So what are facts? Well, maybe the better question is, what are not facts? Facts are not assumptions, predictions, judgments. They are not denial. They are not emotion-based reasoning. What is included under the umbrella of fact is how I feel, like that I'm having an emotion, that is a fact. That I have a thought, urge, or body sensation. Those are all facts. Like my brain is doing something, my body is doing something. And then typically facts are also things that can be observed with our senses. So things that I can see, smell, taste, hear, and touch. In addition to like what's inside us. So like our interoception or proprioception. Now there's a bunch of things that can interfere with my ability to accept. And luckily for me, Distress Tolerance Handout 11A is titled Radical Acceptance, Factors That Interfere. Radical acceptance is not approval, compassion, love, passivity, or against change. Factors that interfere with acceptance: compassion, love, passivity, or against change. Factors that interfere with acceptance. Number 1, you don't have the skills for acceptance. You do not know how to accept really painful events and facts. Number 2, you believe that if you accept a painful event, you are making light of it or are approving events and facts. Number 2, you believe that if you accept a painful event, you are making light of it or are approving of the facts, and that nothing will be done to change or prevent future painful events. Number 3, emotions get in the way. And in the book it says unbearable sadness, but I added the word nearly. So no, nearly unbearable sadness, anger at the person or group that caused the painful event, rage at the injustice of the world, overwhelming shame about who you are, guilt about your own behavior. And then there's a box for other, and I always write in here a lack of a real understanding about what you're accepting, but kind of drill down to what's at the bottom. And just for fun, because I find this to be very reassuring, I have written my own note here. When you're not able to accept something, you can accept that you're not able to accept it. And typically that's like my first step is accepting, oh yeah, I'm not tolerance handout 11B. And I have gone over that handout in many of my episodes. If you search on this podcast website, therapize.joygerhard.com, you will see that just, I don't want to say dozens, but it's possible that there's a dozen episodes about practicing acceptance because it comes up a lot. So that is as much, I think, background information that you need to be able to follow this conversation with Ruth. So let's get into it. So a quick intro to my guests for today. A guest who deserves no introduction. That's not right. A guest who needs no introduction, which is also not accurate. You do need an introduction. People don't know you. Which is also not accurate. You do need an introduction. People don't know you. Okay. My guest, who I'm going to introduce, is my sister Ruth. Ruth is my older sister. Anne, who has also been on the podcast, is my younger sister. And Ruth is currently in Florida. And yes, I imagine that we'll get into more details about who you are as a human as we go. But welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Hooray. So today we're going to be talking about everyone's favorite topic.
Acceptance.
Of the radical variety.
Oh, yes, the radical. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So radical acceptance is a distress tolerance skill in the DBT manual.
That's our distress tolerance.
The DBT manual.
That's our distress tolerance. I feel like it's a life tolerance skill. If I don't accept stuff, I'm like miserable all the time, even if I'm not in distress.
Yeah, well, I think it's because if you have pain and you're out of acceptance around it, it turns into suffering. And suffering out of acceptance around it, it turns into suffering. And suffering being like in the category of distress. So I think it's like frequently what is causing our distress, like, is not what's causing our pain. There's a lot of things that can cause pain, but that takes the pain and cranks it up to 11 is usually that we are out of acceptance. Cranks it up to 11 is usually that we are out of acceptance around it. So that's my guess as to Marsha Linehan's rationale. Is that the word?
Sure, say a word.
So you have a topic that you would like to discuss today that you have observed you were out of acceptance around, which means you've already done the first step.
Huzzah!
Huzzah, indeed. So tell me what our topic is.
Well, I've just been noticing that I have a hard time accepting that part of the experience of being a human being in a body on this planet is that we cause harm to other human beings in bodies on this planet. And aware that it's very important that I'm skilled at apologizing, and not just there, but also in life. I've become aware that I'm not very good at apologizing, and usually it's not because I don't want to take responsibility. It's because I feel shame and guilt for causing any kind of harm in the first place, which sends me into a shame guilt, able to accept that
you caused harm.
Yeah, and not go into a shame spiral every time I do something that hurts somebody else.
Splendid. So I have some questions.
Okay, go. Great.
What does it mean about you if you cause harm?
Ooh, bad, I'm bad. Ask the question again.
What does it mean about you if you cause harm to people?
Yeah, that's the main thing that comes up is that I'm bad. And then I feel like there's also like I'm gonna be alone. Maybe like I don't deserve love. But mostly I feel very little and young and like alone. But mostly I feel very little and young and like alone in my room and crying and bad. That's like the feeling that comes with that.
So there's the bad feeling inside you, like because I was watching your body.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like I get like shivery, like blah.
Yep.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like I get like shivery, like blah.
Yep. And I guess the next question is, what does it mean about you if you're bad?
There's something wrong with me.
But like, what are the ramifications of you? What are the ramifications
No one,
of you? What are the ramifications?
no one was gonna want to know me. Like it's like if you really knew, why would you? People will leave. People will leave.
So like, there's a fear of being rejected, abandoned, kicked out,
None of those language.
and kicked out.
None of those language really resonate. But the essence of it is, yeah, it just
People will leave.
Mm-hmm.
And what does it mean? What are the ramifications if people leave?
Very sad and very lonely. Very sad and very lonely.
Yeah, like it feels shitty.
And small. I just feel it makes me feel very small. And like I constantly have to be like trying. It's exhausting.
Like striving.
Yeah. And like, I want to say pretending, but I don't know if that's.
Striving.
Yeah. And like, I want to say pretending, but I don't know if that's quite the right word, but maybe it is. Like, there's been times in relationships where I know I'm doing something that's hurtful. And I know, like, the intellectual aware adult part of me can see that the thing that's the problem is that I'm pretending like I'm not doing something that's hurting someone. The thing that's the problem is that I'm pretending like I'm not doing something that's hurting someone.
Are you pretending to yourself or to the other person or
Both.
Gotcha.
Both. Because then when I actually, there's been a handful, maybe more than a handful of times when I finally have said the like deeply uncomfortable thing of like, wow, I've been really judgmental, or I've been whatever the thing is, thing of like, wow, I've been really judgmental, or I've been whatever the thing is. And it's almost like the other person is like, ah, like that's why I've been feeling crazy. Like it's like calling out what's going on is actually really relieving. But I like avoid doing that because I'm not supposed to be mean or see everything's bad, 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 bad.
Yes. No, I'm with you. That frequently that's the best word that I have. And that any other like trying to get more specific feels inauthentic. That bad feels like the most authentic word for it.
Yeah, I was very young, and
Yeah.
that's probably the language I have. So like, yeah, even when you were asking me questions of like, what does that mean? I'm like, I don't know. I just feel things in my body. Like it just feels like I want to retreat. I want to curl up in a ball. I'm like, I don't even know what it means. It just makes me want to like curl up and hide.
Well, that's useful information.
Yeah, like I don't want out. I feel like I'm gonna get in trouble and bad things will happen to me. Bad thing, like
What does getting in trouble look like?
I don't know.
So, the difference between shame and guilt, and I know you know this, but my audience might not, is guilt is I did something that goes against my own values, how I want to show up in the world. I didn't do that thing, and so I feel guilty. Shame is I did something that goes against the group's values, and I might get values, and I might get rejected or excluded from the group if they find out. The urges and like kind of the body sensations are frequently very, very similar between the two. How we do opposite action, like how we address it, differs which one it is. So that's why it's useful to be able to tease them apart. But do you have a sense of whether it's your values that you're going against by hurting someone, or if it's the group's values, or both?
My instinctive response to that question is that feeling like I need to apologize. I've been trying to give myself some space for a minute to check in with myself and ask basically that question. Is there a value that I have that I broke, that I feel like I'm trying to apologize when I feel like it is one of my own values, that I really feel conflicted about that because I feel like it's valid to apologize, maybe if someone was hurt, but also I don't really have control over whether or not someone else was hurt. I think that's part of like I mean, I can do like everything in alignment with my own values and someone can be hurt. And I don't know if I need to apologize for that. I'm like not sure what my own relationship with apologizing is yet. But I do try to apologize when I'm acting outside of my own values, which is often there's an element of. So far, what I've noticed is that it's often both, and I try to notice is that it's often both, and I try to only apologize for the part that's my own values and not a group value that I don't actually subscribe to. I think I wouldn't have never been able to say, oh yeah, there's a group value that I don't subscribe to that I broke, and that's like that. I did not have that level of awareness as to what's going on. I did not have that level of awareness as to what's going on. I would just ask myself the question of like, is there a value that I hold that I broke in this instance, and do I need to apologize for that?
Sure. And so it sounds like one of your values is not causing harm to other people. I've been thinking about, because I knew we were going to have this conversation, I've been thinking about analogies that might be helpful. If you're in a world where there's no way to repair your car, how do you drive differently if there's no way to repair your car? Well, this isn't even a hypothetical. You've been learning how to repair your car.
And what might be wrong with it.
Yes. But sure, like you mentioned that there was something that you could do, that you looked up the YouTube video to fix it yourself.
Oh, yeah.
So what is your relationship when you notice something going wrong now versus what was your relationship to something going wrong before you had a...
do something about it? Like before, it felt more like amorphous, and like I was afraid to take stuff to a mechanic because I'm like, they're just gonna like tell me it's blah 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 blah. Yeah, exactly, and charge me like $3,000. And now I walk into a mechanic with like, they'll tell me a thing, and I'm like, I think it's gonna take less time than that. Like this is what happened with the thing that they'll tell me a thing, and I'm like, I think it's gonna take less time than that. Like this is what happened with the thing that broke this time. I was looking at doing this myself, and it seems like it should take like 10 minutes. And he's like, yeah, I think it's going to go faster too, but my estimator's telling me like an hour and 20 minutes, but I think we can probably do it faster. I'm like, yeah, it really seems like it should be. So it was more like we're brainstorming in 20 minutes, but I think we can probably do it faster. I'm like, yeah, it really seems like it should be. So it was more like we're brainstorming together kind of a conversation. And I also, yeah, it still feels better. So I feel like when I called around mechanics, and I can get a vibe of which mechanics are like gonna talk it through with me and which ones are just gonna be like, this is how we do it. Are like gonna talk it through with me, and which ones are just gonna be like, this is how we do it. And I'm like, yeah. Or there could be other ways to do it. That's also possible.
Well, I suspect that a similar thing is at play around relationship harm, where if you don't have a lot of confidence in your ability to...
I was not sure how this analogy fit in, and now I'm starting to get it.
Okay.
Go ahead. Keep talking. I don't quite have it yet. And then I'll...
Like, if something goes wrong, you're fucked. Whereas if you have like a 3D printer, or you're a welder and you know how to like melt things down and like make... More about this reaction, please.
Okay, that was really, I'm annoyed because this feels like, I feel like you and I have had this situation before where we're like, well, if I'd known this sooner, the last 10 years would have been so much smoother. How is this like, God damn it.
So what?
Oh, I just feel like you're right. Like, I feel like I'm like on eggshells. I'm like avoiding acknowledging when things aren't going well or when anything's hurtful because I'm like, I don't know how to fix it. I don't know how to like repair it. And so then I'm like not being myself, and I'm not saying I don't say what I'm actually thinking or feeling because I'm afraid I'm going to say it in a way that causes harm. I feel like I bottle myself up in relationships and I'm not myself. And then I'm like nervous.
Sure.
About, it's funny because when someone comes to me with an issue that they have with me, I feel like I actually handle that really well. but I do not do well initiating. Like I'm really terrible at speaking up about my own needs and wants, which is actually interesting.
Why?
Well, just because I'm like, it's almost like I don't want the other person to feel like they've done something wrong. Like, but if someone comes to me and is like, you did this thing and it was hurtful, I'm like often really good at responding to that. It depends on the moment, it depends on the day. I'm not always good at that, but I'm better, way better at that than I am at initiating a conflict conversation.
So this is interesting because where we started talking, you had mentioned that you're deathly afraid of causing harm. But if someone comes and tells you, "Hey, of causing harm." But if someone comes and tells you, "Hey, you've caused harm," you're okay with it.
I mean, it depends on the day and the person and how they say it and all the things. It's not like I never react and I'm like, but
I have an hypothesis.
What's your hypothesis?
I suspect you're more afraid of the possibility of causing harm. I suspect you're more afraid of the possibility of causing harm than the reality of causing harm.
Why are we having this conversation? I should be watching Netflix.
You still can.
It's a Saturday night.
Yes, it is.
Not Saturday night.
Yes, it is.
Not like I ever do anything Saturday night-ish on Saturday night, but
you could be having
saying.
fun. I know.
Okay, will you please say that again?
I suspect you are more concerned or scared of the possibility of causing harm than the reality of causing harm.
Why? Why do you think that is? That's ridiculous.
It's not though.
Why is it not ridiculous? It sounds ridiculous.
You have judgments.
I have judgments.
Here's why it makes sense. Because our brains crave certainty. And the not knowing, I don't know if I hurt that other person, I don't know if they're mad at me, is so. And I think also this is particularly the case with people who've experienced trauma and have PTSD or CPTSD. Side note, somebody in my DBT group brought up how they're thinking about changing the acronym from PTSD to PTSI. That is a post-traumatic stress injury. But we're gonna put a pin in that. But part of what contributes to chronic PTSD are these beliefs of like, I'm not safe, I can't trust anybody. There's these very much all or nothing catastrophizing sort of beliefs. Like, I don't know who is safe. And so we crave certainty, and scarier than the certainty that you have.
Oh my God, so much scarier. And I'm afraid that they won't tell me if I did.
Right.
And then it's going to be like,
they'll resent you and they'll bottle it up and they'll come out sideways later. And you're like, dude, if you'd mentioned this 3 years ago, I could have addressed this 3 years ago and we'd be in a different place now.
Which is totally what I do.
Sure.
Way. And then I was like instantly like analyzing what I said. Like, did I say it the wrong way? And what maybe they took it this way? Maybe I hurt their feelings. Like maybe it was like my brain was like and like, or they're just doing something else and they haven't responded to your text yet.
Exactly.
This is like a very common occurrence. Like when someone doesn't respond to me, I'm like, not even there. Likely not even there most of the time.
But it makes sense then why somebody coming and telling you directly, hey, you're doing this thing that annoys me or that hurt me, that there's relief there, because at least they've named the thing and they've told you to your face.
Okay, so if that's the case, why is it so, like, if you did something that caused me harm, why is it so hard for me to say you did this thing and it hurt me? Why does that not create relief, you know?
Because it's not about, so in the first instance where someone is coming to you, it's creating certainty. You saying to me, Joy, you hurt me,
opens up a whole can of uncertainty.
Joy, you hurt me.
Opens up a whole can of uncertainty because I have no idea how you're going to respond to that.
And you're also terrified that the way you're bringing it up is going to cause harm to me.
Yeah.
Thoughts and feelings?
It's just exhausting. Like,
sure.
And I think it's just like, sure. And I think it's just, I don't know, that was spot on. So I feel like a pressure valve released or something, like, oh yeah, that is what's going on. Like, because I am like kind of on edge a lot that people are mad at me secretly and not telling me. So when someone actually does say that, I'm like, whew, okay. Like now at least I know. Like I does say that, I'm like, whew, okay. Like now at least I know. Like I'd much rather you I've said this to people before, I'm like, I'd much rather you be yelling in my face about something than like secretly being like harboring a resentment and like not say anything, because I feel so sensitive to people's energy that if something is off with someone, I always assume it's about me.
Yep.
Which I'm that if something is off with someone, I always assume it's about me.
Yep.
Which I'm sure it's not, like 95% of the time, maybe higher, but I assume it is. And so then when someone is like, I am actually mad at you, I'm like, oh, thank God. Like, now I can stop worrying about whether or not you're mad at me because I just know you are.
There's a name for that I learned recently.
Now I can stop worrying about whether or not you're mad at me because I just know you are.
There's a name for that I learned recently in my DBT group. We were going over cognitive distortions, and cognitive distortions are kind of a central feature of CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, and EBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy. And
I have a friend who did that therapy a lot, and she's always sharing the cognitive distortions with me. I'm terrible at them. I have so many of them.
And DBT is a subset. It's like a type of cognitive behavioral therapy, but it's not in the book. But one of the cognitive, it's not in the book. But one of the cognitive distortions is personalization, which is
thinking everything that's happening about you.
Yes.
Basically.
Yes. It's like it's very much central or like main character energy. Not in a like, I'm a movie star, take pictures of me, but more like I am the thing that is causing literally everything else around me to happen.
Isn't this like, this is kind of embarrassing. I feel embarrassed. Because I feel like that's like a learning stage as a child. Like there's like an age at which like kids are not aware that there are other causes in the world. I'm like, did my brain just not develop? Like, what the fuck?
Well, no, but it totally makes sense because first off, you're the one thing you have control over. So in uncertainty, it feels so much better to be like, I'm the one who did it, because at least then you gives yourself somebody else's fault, whatever happened. You can't control other people. It could just keep happening. So I think it's an attempt to, there are faces you're making. What is this face? We're on a podcast, by the way. No one else can see your face.
I know. I'm distracted by the face comment. What did you just say? I forgot. Oh, I can't control anyone else, so it's
easier to blame ourselves, to take full responsibility for it, because you're the one thing you can control.
Control might even be a strong word in that area. I have a much greater influence over myself than I do in that area. I have a much greater influence over myself than I do over anyone else.
Yes. But I have one more piece of validation I want to give.
Oh, okay. I love validation. Keep going.
Hooray. So we grew up with parents who would say one thing on the phone or in a meeting, and then leave the meeting or get off the phone and express how they actually felt. And when asked directly if they were upset, they would say no. And that happened a lot. So it makes sense that you would feel very, very threatened by somebody who says one thing, but everything else about their energy, their behavior, their facial expressions, all of it indicates something else.
Yeah. Also, I do that.
Yeah, that's what humans do.
Say I'm fine and I'm not.
Yeah. We are not... Okay, so backing up a little bit. We've been going over in my DBT group the difference between what is valid, what is justified, and what is effective. And I've been getting into the weeds around it. But part of that is observing what is fact versus what our interpretations are. So if you're frowning, the best I can observe is that you're frowning. I don't actually know how you feel. If you say, Joy, I'm angry, I don't even actually know how you feel. I don't know, are you aware of how you feel? So are you being honest with yourself? Are you being honest with me and actually telling me how you really feel? And am I hearing you accurately? Hearing you accurately. So there's like all these different places where miscommunication can happen. You might not know how you feel. You might know how you feel and lie to me about it. You might tell me exactly how you feel and I don't hear it accurately, or I hear it through my own filter. And so you say, yeah, I'm just really annoyed. And I hear, I'm really annoyed at you. And all of our brains are trying to like get certainty out of this shit. Because the idea of not knowing is so incredibly painful and uncomfortable. Do you have thoughts and feelings about this?
This feels hopeless. What's the point?
Do you have the belief or experience that it's only worth relating to somebody if you're relating to the full and complete truth about each other?
No.
I mean, I think a part of you does.
Yeah, clearly. Well, it's just exhausting. I feel exhausted being on edge and wondering how like it does bring up childhood stuff for me, and I'm like tired.
Yeah. I suspect what there is a lot of practice around accepting that you don't know.
I hate that.
I know.
I don't want to accept that.
Yeah. And then when there is dissonance between what you think you know and what you're observing, that causes you tremendous distress.
Yep, that feels true. I feel like we've kind of ranged all over the place in this conversation so far, and I still don't feel clear. I still don't feel clear about what it is that I'm not accepting. I would like to circle back because this direction at this moment is leaving me feeling like exhausted.
Sure.
Because I feel like all I've been doing for the last like 8 years is working on stuff to rewire my brain, and I can't. Like 8 years is working on stuff to rewire my brain, and I can't. I don't want to do anymore. I'm so tired.
Yeah.
So what I am aware of is that there's some things I haven't accepted, and I would like to practice accepting those.
Well, so I can name off a couple things that I'm noticing, and you can tell me which. Well, so I can name off a couple things that I'm noticing, and you can tell me which strikes your fancy in terms of wanting to like focus in on.
Cool.
So you mentioned the acceptance that you cause harm to other people.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned you're struggling to accept that you're struggling to accept that you can't trust your thoughts or your feelings. What you just said before I started listing off things is a lack of acceptance around that you're constantly rewiring your brain and having to unlearn shit and learn new shit.
Well,
To unlearn shit and learn new shit.
well, the whole. Okay, so can I?
Yes.
So I feel like the thing that I'm wanting is to feel better about bringing up conflict and apologizing. Those are the things that I would like to get better at this moment in time. And I feel like there are some things at this moment in time. And I feel like there are some things that I have not accepted that are getting in my way of my ability to do that.
Okay.
I think the causing harm thing is relevant, but also our conversation about that made me feel like maybe that's not quite the thing because, like you said, when someone else brings up harm, I'm fine. It's like whatever it is that else brings up harm, I'm fine. It's like whatever it is that's getting in my way of being able to actually speak up and acknowledge. Like when I'm aware I've done something hurtful and I need to apologize and the other person hasn't said something to me, I have a very hard time bringing it up. So there's that. And then there's also if someone has done something that's caused harm, a very hard time bringing it up. So there's that. And then there's also if someone has done something that's caused harm to me, I have a hard time bringing that up as well.
Gotcha. So if you've been hurt, what stops you from saying, let's use you and me. So if I hurt you, what stops you from telling me that I hurt you?
And I'm supposed to have grace and understanding for whatever you're going through, and like it doesn't really matter, or like you probably didn't mean it, and I'm also afraid you're gonna be mad. Like I don't know how to say it without being angry, and I don't really want to like approach someone out of anger. Someone has done something that feels hurtful to me, and so
Do you have the belief that you're not allowed to express anger to someone when they've hurt you?
No, but I do believe that it's not always effective.
Do you have the belief that you're not allowed to be hurt?
Yeah.
So, like, no matter how someone treats, what does it mean about you if you are impacted by how other people treat you?
I'll just always be hurt.
And this makes just scads of sense.
Why?
Our parents have no idea how to repair harm. And this is repair harm. And this is, I'm like marinating in this because I, live with them. But when we were growing up, if they did something that hurt us, we had no way of telling them, hey, you hurt me, and then have them respond with repair.
It feels worse. It feels worse to say something and have someone not acknowledge it or repair it than to not say something and just pretend like you're fine.
1000%. Because it's invalidating.
Yeah, and it feels like a slap in the face. Like, it's very hard for me to not make that mean I don't matter to you, you don't give a shit, like, the relationship's not important, like,
1000%. Like, I mention frequently the pros and cons I did about determining whether or not to disclose my pronouns to mom and dad. And I chose that it feels better that they get my pronouns wrong because they don't know that they remember.
right.
And so there's something just really, really fucking distressing. Distressing is not even actually a strong enough word. I would say despairing about telling someone and having them not take ownership of it, not do any sort of repair. Like, the stunts, and there was all this time, 12 months, when there was just no one close enough to see him waving for help. Like, there were planes that were miles overhead, and there were boats that were miles away, ships rather. But I imagine the thing that caused him the most distress, or at least in the story where he told his story, that sounded most distressing, is when a boat saw him and kept going, waved back at him, and kept going. And it's like, what the fuck did he need to do to look more in distress than being drifting in the middle of the Pacific Ocean and not having bathed for a year or eaten a year or eaten a good meal? It's extremely upsetting when you tell somebody that they hurt you and they don't respond with a desire to repair
or change their behavior at all.
Yeah.
I just have heaps of examples of that, not just with our parents, but with like other adults in my life. I just have heaps of examples of that, not just with our parents, but with like other adults in my life and people I've dated and friends and whatever, who I'm like, I can tell you that hurt. And you just keep doing it anyway. Like,
sure.
It doesn't matter at all.
And I think, because I've been mulling this whole thing over, come up a lot in DBT group also, where a lot of the folks in the group have shared, a really vulnerable thing with someone else and had that other person just totally ignore it. And I think of like that phrase, casting pearls before swine. Mm-hmm. Taking this valuable thing that's precious to you and then see the value or the preciousness of it. And ideally, what we then do is like we go door to door knocking on doors to show our pearls, and some of the doors are opened by pigs who go, I don't fucking care about your pearls. And then we keep moving until we find somebody who opens their door and goes, oh my god, pearls! We don't really, we're stuck with the pigs. We don't have the ability to go door to door and find another family, find another community that will value us the way we would like to be valued. And so I think we learn that that's something to just be tolerated. You're having an expression.
I agree. Yeah.
You're having an expression.
I agree. Yeah, I've worked in places where my ideas and thoughts are not valued even remotely. And I've noticed when other people talk about different work environments that I can feel would be very different, where I would be valued and it would be like, part of me is like, that exists, be valued, and it would be like, part of me is like, that exists. Like, and I can also feel this like relief of like, oh my God, what would it be like to be in a place where like people actually want my ideas? Not only are they like tolerating my ideas, they actually like actively are seeking them out and are
enthusiastic about your ideas.
Yeah, actively are seeking them out and are
enthusiastic about your ideas.
Yeah, and not just ignoring them, not tolerating them. Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, but I am like, I watch myself stay in situations where I'm like, well, this is probably as good as it gets. Like, there's elements that are fine. I guess well, this is probably as good as it gets. Like, there's elements that are fine. I guess I can put up with, instead of like, I have a hard time believing that that's even possible.
Of course. And that's why we stay, because we're like, there's nothing better. If all I'm getting here are crumbs, but I'm convinced that out there there's no food at all, I stay with the crumbs. Beggars can't be choosers. This out there there's no food at all, I stay with the crumbs. Beggars can't be choosers, essentially. And there's a lot of messaging to that effect. I mean, certainly a lot of religious messaging is around being content with very little.
Nope.
And if we don't think anything matters,
I love positive outliers.
Indeed. It's like what? So explain to our audience, if you would, what a positive outlier is.
A positive outlier is, well, can I tell the story that
Yeah.
I feel like that's easiest. So I first ran across this idea in a Malcolm Gladwell book, which to help the nutrition of children in some country in Asia, I think, who were kids who were malnutrition, and these outsiders were bringing in food or whatever, and it like, what did I say? Malnutrition?
Yeah, it's malnourished.
Thank you, malnourished. And so these people were trying to like bring in food with like all the outside help. There were a handful of kids who were not malnourished. And so that was the positive outliers, like people who were like, they didn't fit the norm, but in like a positive way. And so then these people got curious of like, so everyone's has kind of basically the same circumstances. Why are these kids not malnourished? And they realized that they're the moms who are working. I'm going to butcher the details, but it's something like the moms who are working in the rice fields or were collecting like bugs from the rice field to bring home to their kids. And so their kids were eating these bugs that their mom collected. And it wasn't like they were buying food. They were just picking bugs out of the rice field collected. And it wasn't like they were buying food. They were just picking bugs out of the rice fields.
Foraging.
Yeah, basically, yeah. And so then they were like, instead of bringing it out, so it was like finding the people who were already existing in the circumstance and doing it well, and then having them like teach the other moms, like, okay, here's what you could do with like the circumstances you're in, instead of trying to like, here's what you could do with like the circumstances you're in, instead of trying to like completely shift the whole thing. But yeah, finding the people who are able to do well in a circumstance that most people aren't, whatever that circumstance is, and then figure out what allows them to do that and how can we learn from that.
Sure.
That's a positive outlier. What were you going to say about we learn from that?
Sure.
That's a positive outlier. What were you going to say about positive outliers, though? You were saying.
Well, so we were talking about like the casting pearls before swine, and that you're looking for the positive outlier of the person who will see your pearls and go, oh my God, I really want pearls.
Right. I work with someone like that right now. I work with someone like that right now.
A positive outlier. Yeah. And if we don't believe that that positive outlier exists, we stick with our crumbs. We stick with our swine. Because a lot of our childhood experience is of learned helplessness. We are at the effect of learned helplessness. We are at the effect of what our parents are willing to support us around. If they're not willing to like drive us to go hang out with friends or and enroll us in, after school stuff or whatever, all we have access to is what our parents will allow. And we get used to that, get used to that. And then when we become adults, we, I think, still stick with that same sort of thinking of like, just whatever is what I have to be okay with, rather than doing the work of trying to find something, trying to find your positive outliers, So we tolerate a lot of shit.
Yes.
Yeah. So I guess my question is, what is the characteristic of a relationship where you feel the freedom to tell somebody that they hurt you?
That's an interesting question, because I'm like thinking about the relationships where I do feel free to say it. It's like people who there's a track record of them responding well to me saying things, but I'm like, how would I know in the first place? Like, because I can tell there's some people I just don't ever say anything to, and I'm like, why not? And who are the people that I'm more willing to? I think people their own initiative feels like a safer person to say, hey, that hurt too.
Or like if you see them apologize to someone else, like you have a data point that, hey, that's a skill that they have.
Yeah, or if they apologize to me for a thing that may or may not have actually hurt.
Sure.
I have a coworker who I adore who thinks stock things, and I was like, had taken everything she needed off the tray, and then I was physically in her way, and I didn't realize she was done. And she went like this with her hand, like shoo shoo, away.
Yeah.
And then she instantly was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I don't know why I did that." And I was like dying laughing because if anyone else had did it, I would have felt like 2 inches tall and instantly apologized. And then we were joking about it like the whole rest of the day. It was very funny. But like that, like the instant apology, because I've had other people like yell at me at work and never apologize.
Sure. Yeah.
So I think someone who's like that, like it was clear to her that that was like outside of her own values, how she wanted to interact with people. And then she was like, I didn't know if I would have to tell her that she'd hurt me because she would probably catch it before I did. But yeah, so apologizing, I don't know. I have to think about that more.
That's fair. And that's also kind of like a tangential sort of question. But I want to kind of bring us back to what you wanted. Like if there is anything in the list you are interested in leaning into.
Can you list them again? I've forgotten.
So that part of the human experience is causing harm to other people. That's the one you want to. And so let's get specific. Part of you being human is that you will cause harm to other people.
Okay.
Okay. So let's start with what you think practicing acceptance around that would look like.
Can you say it again?
That you cause harm to other people.
Me as an individual, my experience of being
you Ruth.
My experience of being
you Ruth as a human will cause harm to other people.
I mean, I feel like the first thing to do is just literally say that and then deal with whatever my uncomfortable emotions are until I can even sit with the sentence. That feels like the first thing maybe to do because I want to throw up every time you say that.
And what
because I want to throw up every time you say that.
And what do you think like the end result? Like let's pretend you have accepted it. What do you think that would look like?
That would be very easy for me to apologize to people.
Okay.
And I would be able to look at my own actions more objectively. Like I wouldn't I don't know, this is my instinctive first response. Is like I feel like I would be less like worried all the time that I was causing harm and more like it reminds me of the gift of fear. I don't know if listeners have read the gift of fear, but I don't know if listeners have read the gift of fear, but he talks about how there's like authentic like fear that's justified basically and fear that's not justified, and that if you're in fear all the time of things that aren't justified, it makes it hard to identify when there's actually a reason to be afraid.
It's like the boy who cried wolf.
There's actually a reason to be afraid.
It's like the boy who cried wolf.
Yeah, and your body's just amped up all the time, so you don't recognize the signals as easily of like, oh, this is actually dangerous. Mm-hmm. So it feels like that. Like if I wasn't just constantly nervous that I was like causing harm, then I think it would be more clear. Like, oh, that about that. Like I feel like I'm, oh my God, I said the wrong thing, and now this person's like, no, not really at all. Did I do that? So I think I'd be just generally calmer.
Hold on, I'm writing down things to accept. So give me just a second.
Okay.
Right now, you're constantly on edge, assuming or worried that you're causing harm to others.
Yeah.
Okay.
When there's like no facts to back it up, just like, you know, someone hasn't responded to a text yet or whatever, and then I'm instantly worried.
Okay. And what you might cause harm to others?
Yeah. Not might, will. That's the problem. It's like an inevitability of being alive.
And what will happen? What are you concerned will happen when you cause harm to others?
They won't tell me, and then they'll leave. I feel like I'm always on edge and always trying to repair things just in case to make sure that how this would affect me bringing up conflict when someone else has hurt me. And I realize I think if I can accept that part of being alive is that we cause harm to each other, then there's less judgment of someone else if they're causing harm to me, which also means there's less anger about it, which I think would actually make it easier for me to hurt in a way that, because sometimes I think when I'm I can approach things from a really charged place that makes it hard to respond not defensively.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if I was like, oh yeah, you hurt me, because sometimes we hurt each other as people, and like I'm hurt and I can express the hurt, but like there might be less judgment and less like edge to my bringing up that someone else. Because I think part of the anger is like this righteous indignation of like, you're not supposed to hurt me. No one's supposed to hurt me.
Mm-hmm.
And you did. Because if that's the belief that like we shouldn't cause harm to each other, then I'm like, and you did. Because if that's the belief that like we shouldn't cause harm to each other, then I'm like furious that someone else causes harm to me too. And then I don't want to bring it up out of that energy because that doesn't feel good. So I feel like it would make it more like, well, yeah, sometimes in life we hurt each other. You just hurt me. Just letting you know. Sometimes in life we hurt each other. You just hurt me. Just letting you know. Could you please apologize? Or whatever I need.
So what right now is stopping you from doing that?
Bringing it up.
Mm-hmm.
Usually because I have a ton of heat on it and I'm afraid to bring it up from a really charged place. And I also don't know how to, I think there's a really charged place. And I also don't know how to, I think there's a lot of power in asking permission, sort of, like to have conversations that people might not be prepared for in whatever realm, like feedback conversations or like that hurt me. And I don't quite know how to ask someone if they're open to this kind of like me. And I don't quite know how to ask someone if they're open to this kind of like, like sometimes, like even if I want to vent to someone about work or whatever, like it's nice to ask, like, are you in a headspace where, and I don't know how to ask, like, are you in a headspace where I can share how much you hurt me? And I need like, because then if you're not, now you're going to be like, oh my God, what did I do? Like, it's a weird, I don't know how, and I need like, because then if you're not, now you're going to be like, oh my God, what did I do? Like, it's a weird, I don't know how to enter that kind of conversation well without just blurting it out.
Sure.
And in the past, I've had relationships where I have asked or like, and then that person was like, I don't like that you ask. Like it then was creating anxiety. Like they were like, just jump in. It never felt right to me to do that afterwards, which also I think made it harder to bring stuff up.
Well, but I think you're within your rights to, let's say you're out on a walk, you can say, hey, something's been bothering me. Are you okay with me talking about it now?
Why is that so simple? Ugh.
Like I think what downtime, let's schedule this time for you to tell me that I hurt you horrifically. It's not like either you don't tell them anything or you give them like 2 days advance notice. I think you can just say, hey, I would like to talk to you about something. Are you in a headspace to hear it now? And then it's a consensual conversation.
Me.
Why?
I don't know.
What does it mean about you that things bother you?
That I'm not forgiving enough, that I'm judgmental, not empathic, or understanding. That's so our parents. That's so our parents. If you just understood, you should have grace for me and for what I'm feeling, and then you wouldn't be hurt.
Yeah. Yeah, like Dad has said many, many times that part of being in a relationship is like letting the little stuff slide or letting things roll off your back. Or letting things roll off your back. And I'm like, I agree. I do actually agree that there's certain differences between me and Mom and Dad. Like, Mom likes to close the blinds at night. She doesn't like having a black window. And I hate that. It bothers me. And I'm like, who the fuck cares? I care. It bothers me. But like, no fuck cares. I care. It bothers me. But like, not to the point where I'm gonna like carry all this resentment around it. It's just like, yeah, I would do it differently. But when someone doesn't want to have to sit with the harm that they've caused, they will convince you that you should not be harmed. Someone should not be harmed. Someone who is okay being told that they've caused harm will allow others to feel harmed.
Right.
And like, seriously, Ruth, they don't know how to apologize.
I know.
I had a conversation with them probably a couple years ago, where Dad was talking about a TV show or something that he saw. And he asked me, like, here's this plot, here's how it went down. What would you do in this situation, Joy? And I started kind of laying out what an apology would look like. And he kind of looked at me and was like, where did you learn? And I'm like, not from you guys. And when he and I talk about conflict that he and I have, or we're like, I'm upset with him about something, he will always jump to, well, where in your worldview, Joy, where in your worldview does forgiveness sit? Like, where does forgiveness factor in? Huge amount of shame when they cause harm.
This is why I'm exhausted because I feel like I don't exist. I feel like I'm an amalgamation of my parents and society and all my other relationships. And like, it's just exhausting. I'm like, do I even have my own sense of me? Like, because that's like, and that's so clearly their mom and dad, and it's like it's a whole jumbled mess of human soup, and like, who is anyone anyway? And then I'm just gonna watch Netflix all day.
Well, sure, but I think that's because you think that there should be a clearly defined, clearly boundaried Ruth.
It's just discouraged by people whose opinions I don't agree with. Go ahead.
There is a belief or an interpretation, a meaning that you're making out of that I think that is causing you a tremendous amount of distress. I can say more.
Sure.
So, from a position of physics, stream of falling dominoes. Like right now, you're sitting on something.
Mm-hmm.
That's if it weren't there, you would be sitting on the floor, and if the floor weren't there, you'd be sitting on the ground, and if the ground weren't there, etc., etc. You are constantly interacting with the physical space around you, and it is constantly interacting with you. Equal in magnitude, opposite in direction. It's physics. I don't know if that's
Newton's law of something or other.
first or second, I don't remember which. But like, we're constantly being impacted by shit. And you just hit on one of the things that's causing you distress is that you're being impacted by things you don't agree with. That you have by things you don't agree with. That you have, like, you inherited beliefs from people that you're like, that's actually not the belief I want to have. That's not the value I want to have. This is my actual value. And it's annoying that a lot of behavioral ruts were formed based off of were formed based off of things we did not actively choose.
Yes, it is annoying and it's exhausting.
Well, and I think part of your exhaustion is because
I haven't accepted that that's true.
that's part of it. I think
That that's true.
that's part of it. I think that's a big part of it, actually. Because I think, like, what you're describing right now is the human experience. Literally, it's the human experience. We are our parents, our grandparents, our great great grandparents. We are our teachers from school. We are our siblings. And when you're in a more grounded place, you actually love that. You love that there's no delineation, that we are all one, you know?
Yeah, I do. It's annoying.
But what I'm hearing you say is you really just want to be one with the good shit and not one with the good shit and not one with the bad shit.
I just took a drink of water. That's bad timing. Yes. Mm-hmm.
And that's fair. Like, imagine getting served food and somebody has put a bunch of hairs on it. You just want to eat your meal. You don't want to have to tease the hair out of your meal.
Exactly.
I get it. That makes total sense. I think, like, I've heard you express like bone deep fatigue at like, when is this going to be over? When is this work going to be over? And to be over. And I don't think it ever is. I think we spend our entire lives asking the question, hey, is this thing I'm doing actually the thing I want to be doing? Or did I inherit this pattern from someone else? I think what causes you distress, what makes it exhausting, is because when you ask that question, you then have so much judgment aimed at yourself and aimed at everything else. Oh my God, I did this thing that's out of alignment with my values. I'm a horrible piece of shit. I shouldn't have done that. Oh my God, what if I hurt somebody about it? This is horrible. I'm a bad human. All of the to, oh yeah, this is part of being human, that I'm going to do things. I have patterns that I'm not currently actively choosing. There are things I'm doing by rote, and some of those things are things I don't want to be doing. And that is just what it is.
Yeah.
Thoughts and feelings. I think that's an experience. a fatigue.
I mean, that feels accurate, everything you just said about judging that that's the case. And it's reminding me of this thing I have on my mirror behind me about self compassion from the perfectionist book that I was telling you about, the Kristen Neff's work on self compassion. Anyway, she was saying how when you carry compassion with you, when you can be compassionate with yourself no matter what, then you carry safety with you wherever you go.
Mm-hmm.
And then she breaks down like the elements of self compassion, and one of them was that, like, I forget the compassion, and one of them was that, like, I forget the actual phrase, but basically what you just said, that like this awareness that like you're not the only one who's had experiences like this, and that this is like actually part of the human condition. And I was kind of annoyed by that step when I was like practicing, and I always was shocked at how much relief I had when I was like practicing. And I always was shocked at how much relief I had when I was able to actually be like, oh, yeah, other people. I'm like, oh, it actually is like, because I don't know why it was different, but like what you just said, I feel like people say stuff like that all the time and it never means anything to me. Like, this is just part of the human, say stuff like that all the time and it never means anything to me. Like, this is just part of the human experience. Like, it almost feels cliche of like, that's just part of being human. And I don't know, something about like actively going through that step by step when I was being hard on myself was like, oh, it's actually part of being human. I don't know why it was different, but
Because
actually part of being human. I don't know why it was different, but
because I think like when we say those kind of platitudes, those bumper sticker phrases, we're not actually drilling down to like what that means. It's something that we kind of wallpaper over. And you can do that shortcut over. And you can do that shortcut once you have drilled down.
right.
But if you haven't done that yet, you're just wallpapering over a thing and it's not actually all that helpful. I think like what I'm hearing is causing so much of this. Let me put it this way. So I watched a video the other day of a dog who was digging a hole at the beach. And it was like he was like 2 or 3 feet away from where the water was. So he's digging and the sand keeps filling back in. And the sand keeps filling back in. And this dog is getting really annoyed. Like really, really agitated and like will dig, and then stare at it and get like all like hunched up and stuff and like, why is it filling in? And the dog is not in acceptance that like this is not an effective place to dig this. Like this is not an effective place to dig this hole. Like he can't hold the tide back. The tide is where it is. The sand is the thing that it is. The effective thing for the dog to do is to go further up the beach, like away from the water, where it will not be collapsing. Is currently is not working. He will keep trying to dig that hole forever. And what I'm hearing in all the various places where we've identified where you're out of acceptance is that you think you shouldn't be harmed. So you're going to stay in these relationships and in this way of interacting with other people.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yep.
And you think that you should not be causing harm. So you're going to keep staying in this place of trying to be like hyper vigilant of, oh my God, what if I hurt this person? And over apologizing and walking on eggshells because you think all of that is getting in the way of you actually doing the effective behavior that would actually move you into a place where you're causing less harm.
Hmm.
Because when you tell somebody that they've hurt you, you come to them and say, hey, you hurt me. And they hear you and they listen. What does that do to your feeling of being harmed?
Makes me feel better.
Yeah. And when you go to them and say, hey, you hurt me, and they refuse to acknowledge that they hurt you,
Pisses me off.
yes, it causes more harm.
Yep.
So the harm is actually not in the harm, the original behavior. The harm is in how we hold it afterwards.
Oh my God. I wasn't listening. I mean, I was listening, but not for that direction. Please say all of that again.
The harm is not in the inciting incident.
No. Wait. Go back to the example. Wait. Go back to the example, because now that I know where you're going.
Okay, so if you come to me and say, Joy, you hurt me, and I hear you, and I'm like, oh my God, absolutely. I can totally see how that hurt you. Here's what I will do behavior-wise in the future. What is your behavior-wise in the future? What is your experience of the harm that I caused initially?
It feels better.
It feels better.
Yeah.
But if you come to me and say, Joy, you hurt me by doing X behavior, and I say, that's stupid, why are you bothered by that? Does your level of initial harm stay the same? Or does it increase?
No, it gets worse.
Yes. So the initial, whatever behavior X was that hurt you initially, is actually not where most of the harm lives. It's in the holding of it after you share the harm. I shouldn't have been hurt by this. You're invalidating yourself. So either you're invalidating yourself about being harmed, or the other person is invalidating you. The invalidation's actually the harm. Ruth, that's the shit we remember. I cannot tell you most of the things that mom and dad did that were hurtful when we were kids, but
Makes me want to quit my job.
Sure.
I'm just, I mean, I don't know for sure, but I guess it's more, I feel like that's more like the litmus test than in a relationship of whether or not it works for me. Is like, if I share that this thing hurt, how do you respond to? Total might be a little, but go ahead.
But like, if you cause initial harm, inciting incident X, and someone comes and tells you about it, and you hold that with compassion and with validation and with repair, you can almost invisibilize the initial harm that you did. Not exactly.
Comes up to my whole problem that I have, which is that I don't believe people will tell me if I've caused harm.
Sure. So first, then there's the work that you do of like looking for areas where you are out of alignment with your own values.
And apologizing.
Sure.
Proactively. Right.
And then there's also opposite action to your
Right.
And then there's also opposite action to your shame. Because if you go through life assuming that you're hurting people and they're not telling you, you will behave as though you're hurting them and they're not telling you. And you will stay in relationships with people who are being hurt by you and not telling you. And not telling you.
Okay. I don't know what opposite action to that means.
So the acceptance is not that, okay, I'm not hurting anybody. The acceptance is around, I don't actually know how I'm impacting other people.
Unless they tell me.
Unless they tell me.
Unless they tell me.
Unless they tell me. And even then, again, because I mentioned like the different layers of where miscommunication can happen.
That's very uncomfortable.
Yeah. But like, you're uncomfortable already, Ruth.
That's fair.
Uh-huh.
That's fair.
Uh-huh. Like, it's kind of like choosing your discomfort.
Yeah. I think that's part of why I'm so tired is because I don't think I'm choosing my because that feels like a much more empowering discomfort to choose. Like it's like I'm actually doing something rather than that feels maybe a bad rather than that feels maybe a bad analogy, but that feels like being on a surfboard paddling out over the waves, exhausting, but like in a I'm doing something kind of way versus like the wave throwing you under and just like pummeling you over and over and over into the sand and you're like wow that's exhausting over and over and over into the sand and you're like wow that's exhausting but I like didn't do anything or accomplish anything. I'm just literally being thrown around.
Yes.
That's the difference that feels like.
And there's like if you really want to one of the where was this? Give me just a second. I'll find it. But one of the where was this? Give me just a second. I'll find it. But one of the things that one of the skills in DBT is around like painful thoughts or whatever is to say them out loud in a silly voice or repeat them over and over and over and over and over and over and over again until they just sound like noise.
Well, that would be fun.
Yep. Another one is like imagine it being said by someone you hate, like somebody you don't respect and you think it's stupid. You're like, I wouldn't believe that person. But we kind of keep going back to the devil we know beats the devil we don't. And we downplay we're not aware of all of the harm that what we're currently doing around, like, here are all the impacts of what my current way of being is.
On myself.
Yes.
Ugh. Yeah.
Because I think part of what gets in the way of us trying a new way is, like, it's uncomfortable, it's new, it's unfamiliar, and everything of your limbs off. And the alternative is getting a paper cut or two. They're like, but I don't like paper cuts. I'm like, but you're choosing right now. You're actively choosing to have your limbs sawed off. And maybe, as uncomfortable as paper cuts are, maybe they're the better alternative.
That's a good analogy.
Thank you. And we haven't even gone through, like, radical acceptance step by step through this, because we spent pretty much the entire time identifying the thing.
We'll have to do another call.
Uh-huh. I wrote down what are some of the things so we can actually go through them.
Cool. I mean, my main takeaway is that I should re-listen to our conversation to write down my main takeaways. Is that I should re-listen to our conversation to write down my main takeaways, because I feel like there were several things throughout, and often when there are several things that are challenging all my things, I don't remember them immediately because my brain is like, let's just pretend that didn't happen and keep on keeping on with the sawing off of the limbs. But I think let's just pretend that didn't happen and keep on keeping on with the sawing off of the limbs. But I think the main thing that stuck with me in this moment is the idea that the harm is mostly caused in how you hold the repair.
Or the lack of the repair.
Exactly. Yeah. Like the attempts to repair, how that gets handled is like where most of the harm or not harm or whatever happens, which feels very encouraging.
I remembered the point I was going to make.
Oh, great. Go.
The reason I brought up say it with a silly voice is because you know about, like, the 12 central tenets of white supremacy? I'll share it in the show notes. One of them is, like, perfectionism. That if you can't do it perfectly, don't even bother.
Yeah, we've been talking about that in my book club.
Yep. And so I think that's why a lot of white folks don't have the skill of repair. Because it's kind of like saying, I'm not going to flat tire.
Right. But everyone knows that it's inevitable, and so that's why everyone has spares around.
Exactly. Even though you're doing your damnedest not to drive over nails and screws and whatever, and glass or whatever, still these things can happen. Still, harm can be caused. And if you don't know how to repair, you're stuck on the side of the road. Like, you literally cannot drive. You literally can't move forward. But if you insist, hey, I'm demanding perfection, you don't do any of the skill building around handling imperfection. Repair being central. Tolerance of imperfection, acceptance of imperfection, all of those things, we are hamstringing ourselves around because we don't have the practice. We've been avoiding imperfection because it feels like such an existential threat.
That feels accurate.
And if you can get used to, like, do exposure to imperfection, like our art project yesterday in class was friendship bracelets, and I got like 3 rows in on this and saw I made a mistake and chose to keep going.
Nice.
And I'm like, I'm gonna notice that mistake. I have this, my first ever embroidery over there is the one with a bomb.
Mm-hmm.
And I look at that and I'm like, oh, I do so much better now. But I purposely keep that on the wall where I look at it every single day to get used to the idea of looking at things I've done that I'm not used to, not hang that up because I'm like, it's so bad. But now I'm just like, that was my first.
Well, it's funny because when you first did it, I bet you didn't have that reaction to it.
I did not. It was only after I got, like, noticeably better that I started looking at it and went, oh, that's not a great satin stitch. Look at those letters. But now I look at it as, like, to take steps in order to walk, in order to run, in order to do whatever. Like, those baby steps are the first thing, like, a necessary thing. Why do we judge those? Because we wish we were taking big old strides, and instead we're taking steps that are smaller than what we would like to be taking.
But that you had to do that first one to get better at your other ones.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Ruth, it's the judgment of where you're at that's causing your exhaustion, ultimately. that you think you should be someplace else, as opposed to just being like, yep, you should be someplace else, as opposed to just being like, yep, here I am. This is uncomfortable. I feel uncomfortable. I have thoughts and judgments about where I am. I would like to be somewhere else. And I'm not. And I have thoughts and feelings that I'm not.
That all feels true. Is acceptance the opposite of judgment? Acceptance the opposite of judgment?
Part of what drives non-acceptance is judgment. So non-judgment is a key component to acceptance. I wouldn't say that they're like necessarily opposites or whatever.
Okay. We're gonna have to have another call to actually practice. We're gonna have to have another call to actually practice the steps with the things.
Sure. But this is, I think, an excellent example of frequently, this isn't in the book, and I'm annoyed it's not in the book, but there's a page of what gets in the way of acceptance, and there's an other, and the other I always add is not knowing what you're actually, there's an other, and the other I always add is not knowing what you're actually needing to accept.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't drill down, you can spend all this time trying to accept a thing that's actually not the effective thing to accept.
I know, and you're usually really good at helping me figure out what the thing is, because sometimes I can tell. I'm like, I don't know what there is to accept. And then I try to accept things. I'm like, that doesn't feel right. Yeah. So thank you.
Sure.
And I hear you about the judgment. Judgment is exhausting.
Yes.
Yeah. I've worked with people who are really judgmental, and judgment is exhausting.
Yes.
Yeah. I've worked with people who are really judgmental, and it is so tiring to be around. And then I notice myself easily. It's like so easy for me to get into that space of like, let's talk about all the things that are terrible. And then I'm like, oh my God, it's so tiring.
Well, and when you can get really skilled, you can be around judgmental people and not.
And then I'm like, oh my God, it's so tiring.
Well, and when you can get really skilled, you can be around judgmental people and not get into judgment yourself by transmutating their judgments of like, that person's an idiot. And you ask a couple questions and you get to, that person's not doing the work you wish they were doing at the rate you wish they were doing it. That's really frustrating. Like it's that dog digging that hole. He's exhausting himself because he's putting all of this energy into a futile enterprise. And judgments are basically trying to cash checks that reality can't cash. You should be this other way, and it's not.
I struggle with that. After judging people and just accepted that's how they are, then I'm like, well, maybe how they are doesn't work for me.
Sure.
In a work environment. And then I'm like, but then I'm disappointed. And then I have to deal with, oh, well, I'm disappointed because I had like there's elements of this job I really love, and there's elements I really don't. And if instead of trying to change anyone, if I just accept it, that's part of what I struggle with too, is like, if I accept people for how they are, then where does like speaking up come in if I'm not judging? You know what I mean?
So that's another thing that like that I think we assume acceptance means that we're not actively trying to change things. Acceptance is not approval. I'm going to toot my own horn because it's brilliant. Let's say you're driving somewhere and you want to figure out what your destination is. What do you have to do to your phone to have it give you directions?
You have to put in your destination.
You have to have the destination, sure, but what else do you have to have turned on?
Your location.
Your location. You can in order to get directions, and acceptance is turning on your location. If you are like in, say, a really sketchy area of downtown, wherever, and you want to get to my house, you have to acknowledge that you're in that sketchy area downtown. If you spend your entire time going, but I don't want to be here, I want to be at your house. Can't I just get to your house? I really want to be at your house. Directions to get to my house.
I think that's part of what stresses me out about acceptance. Like if I think about accepting my current work situation and the dynamics that are at play that don't really work for me, and I see where I want to go, then I part of me is like, I don't know how to get from here to there.
So I think it's because we think that
like, I don't know how to get from here to there.
So I think it's because we think that we can judge things into changing.
Uh-huh.
If I judge it hard enough, it'll change. And if you accept that it is as it is, then you're left with choosing rather than like a knee-jerk reaction. You actually get to look at it with, here is what is so. Yes, here are all these things that I love. Here's all these things that don't feel good to me. Does this actually work for me? Think of like with me and mom and the door lock. I spent 11 years thinking that if I judged her hard enough, she'd stop coming into my room. Until I finally put a lock on the door, and that is the thing that stopped her coming into my room.
Right.
But I was out of acceptance that I thought I could explain it just right, I could make the request just so, what have you.
Right. That would be actually really freeing, I think, to just sit down and write out, here's all the things I love, and here's all the things freeing, I think, to just sit down and write out, here's all the things I love, and here's all the things that I don't love, and actually look at it honestly. Be like, does this work for me? Yes or no? And if it doesn't, what's the, like, do I want to have a conversation? Do I just want to leave? Like, what's the, yeah.
But that could be painful because it may
leave. Like, what's the, yeah.
But that could be painful because it may mean you have to make a decision that's going to be uncomfortable. I think that's why we avoid it, and we think, hey, if I just judge everybody hard enough, they'll become the perfect workplace for me and I won't have to change things.
100%. Yeah, because the conversation to potentially have the workplace change and find something else is uncomfortable. It's like less uncomfortable to just stay where I am and complain about it and judge everything.
And saw your arm off.
I was talking to somebody the other day who said that if a place doesn't work for me, my health is going to tank. Like, they're like, your body's going to like eventually be like, you have to get out and make sure. And people come in with chronic pain, and I'm like, maybe it's because you hate your job that your wrist on a computer is driving you. Like, it's not just the ergonomics of the computer, it can also be your body being like, hey. And I've been starting to have weird pains at work. People are starting to point out to me that, like you said, there's a cost to me just sticking around when it's not ready to leave or whatever.
Yep. Because then you, like, if you sat down and really wrote everything out, you could go to your boss and say, look, here's what I would need in order to stay, because how it's going isn't currently working. But not doing that is a guarantee that you won't get it.
100%. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Well, that is, yeah, right?
Yeah.
Well, that is nerve-wracking, because then I have to trust that I'll find something else if this one land, like, that is a nerve-wracking. Ugh, it's uncomfortable.
Sure.
Okay.
How you feeling?
Good. Better. Like, oh, well, maybe this workplace will get better, or I'll find, like, oh, well, maybe this workplace will get better, or I'll find something else amazing. Like, part of that feels very freeing. Like, I could leave this place and go somewhere else that might be better.
And having a clear vision, like we talked about this with your past roommate situation, that you went in and was just like, I'll just take it. And then you realized you had all, like, I'll just take it. And then you realized you had all of these deal breakers that were being broken, but you weren't clear on what your deal breakers were. And so when you don't know what your values are, you don't know what your goals are, you don't know like what works for you, you'll just take whatever. And that makes sense when we're kids, because we have to take whatever when we're to bed.
I do have to go to bed. I'm tired. And I have my busiest day at work tomorrow.
Well, I will email you the list of things. And
oh, thank you.
And it's not like you have to pick one. We can actually practice radical acceptance to all of them. It just will take a long time to say it all.
Very good. Okay.
Which is fine. It's 8 bullet points, because the thing that I need to accept keeps getting longer and longer and longer.
That's funny. Cool. Is there anything you want to say in a rappy-uppy kind of way?
Thank you. Thank you for hopping on and for being super, super vulnerable and talking about things that were bringing up a lot of painful emotions for you. And for sticking through it. It's this hopeless place.
Thank you. Thank you for sticking through it too, because I was in the middle like, and now I'm like, oh.
Well, and I'm really curious, actually, when you have time to percolate on it, if anything rises to the surface in terms of like what got you from hopeless to like, oh, it's just this. You don't have to say it now. Percolate.
Okay, I'll percolate.
Alrighty, well, happy sleeps.
Thank you. I love you.
I love you too, and I'll love you later. Bye.
Okay, bye.
Welcome back to the future. There is clearly much more conversation to have with Ruth, and we will be doing that recording sometime in the near future about like actually going through and practicing acceptance around the things that we identified today. But in closure, I wanted to go over a couple of the things that I mentioned, like some of the resources that I will list in the show notes. I have a handout on cognitive distortions. I've linked to the book that Ruth mentioned, The Perfectionist Guide to Losing Schaeffler. I also mentioned a couple of the embroideries that I like my "This is terrible, keep going," and also the bomb embroidery. I will post pictures of those on social media on my Instagram, so you can go take a look at those. I also mentioned, and then got "When You Don't Respect," and I brought that up and then like circled around trying to remember why I brought it up, and said it was related to white supremacy. And I don't know that I explained that all that well, so I thought I would take this moment now to explain that. So there's some central characteristics or tenets of white supremacy. You can go find those listed out in a Google Drive document written by Tema Okun. Maybe it's Okun, Okun. And these are kind of the central characteristics of white supremacy culture, and there's 10 of them. One of them is perfectionism, that there is one right way to be. And so it's helpful for me to know when I find myself like getting kind of into the weeds of it has to be perfect, to say to myself, oh yeah, white supremacy wants me to be perfect. And then I can be like, well, fuck white supremacy. I actually don't want to do anything in accordance with what it thinks I should do. I will be fucking imperfect out of spite. So that is why I mentioned saying it in a silly voice or a voice of someone you don't respect. I also mentioned a phrase. I kept saying it wrong. The phrase is, judgments are writing checks that reality can't cash. That's what a judgment is. It's writing a check that reality can't cash. So that is the correct version. Let's see, is there anything else? I think I've covered everything. I have linked to all of the handouts that I mentioned in the conversation with Ruth in the description, so you can go see a list of what those are in case you were following along. Alrighty, well, I would like to give a huge thank you again to my guest today, Ruth. I said it earlier, but I'll say it again. I really appreciate her vulnerability and her willingness to be messy and imperfect in a very public forum that can be really scary and really vulnerable, and she did it anyway, so I'm very, very grateful. And thank you, dear listener, for following along with us, and stay tuned for some time in the near future for the rest. I still don't know how to end this, so I'm just going to end it super abrupt. This has been Let's Therapize That Shit, with your host, me, Joy Gerhard. If you like what you heard, please rate, review, subscribe, and tell your friends about it. I'll see you next time. Orchestra, conducted by Anatoly Fistulari, and released on LP by Richmond High Fidelity London Records in 1952.